What question was it, Eleni?
It was the selecting the bundle of his or HIS.
Yeah, it's a bundle of his. You mean in the courseware, visible body courseware lab assignment?
Yeah, because I can see where it is on the diagrams. I couldn't figure out how to select it from the like
Uh,
out.
so you will see in this specific question, so you will see a model of the heart like this. You're gonna see like a cardiac structure at the junction between the atria and the ventricle. And you need to select this part and press hide in order for it to be removed, and this will expose the bundle of His or the AV bundle underneath it. So it is hidden by a muscle layer that you need to select it first and then press hide for you to expose the conduction system of the heart.
Okay, I did not realize that. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. All right. So, any other questions? Any other questions that you have related to the previous assigned activities for module one? Any questions that you did have problem with in those quizzes, assignments? No. All right. So, moving on to any questions that you do have related to chapter 25. Chapter 25, or the urinary system. Any topics that you want me to review with you, repeat, or focus on? Any concepts that you did have trouble with while you are watching the video recordings for the urinary system? My recommendation always to get the recommended video recordings watched in a timely manner for you to not accumulate a lot of stuff that you need to cover in a shorter period of time later on. All right. So, uh, so let us let us have some review for important concepts related to chapter 5 in the form of in-class activity questions before. For those who did watch the video recordings, it's going to be a review for you. For those who didn't complete, some parts will be for you like an introduction to the concepts that you're going to be uh, covering in the chapter. So the urinary system on here, it's the system formed of multiple organs, and their main function is to regulate the blood content, water concentration, sodium content of the blood volume. All this gonna be the function. All these gonna be the functions of the urinary system. What are the various organs on here that enter in the structure and share in the formation of the urinary system? If we're looking on here, we've got two bean-shaped organs that are located in the abdomen. This is going to be number one for today's in-class activity questions. What do we call those bean-shaped organs located in the abdominal cavity, if you remember? And those were located retroperitoneal. What I mean by retroperitoneal, they are located behind the peritoneal cavity, away from the rest of the abdominal organs. So what do we call those organs again here? Those exactly are my kidneys. The kidneys, if you remember, they will be responsible for the filtration of the blood and the formation of the urine. The urine gets formed in the form of tiny little droplets, which are gonna be moving from the kidney towards those muscular tubes, which will carry the urine droplets all the way from the abdominal cavity down to the pelvic cavity for those urine droplets to be accumulated, stored in another muscular sac. What do we call those muscular tubes that will carry the urine droplets down from the kidneys in the abdominal cavity to this muscular sac located in the pelvic cavity? Exactly, those are my ureters. And if you remember, those urine droplets are not released directly, immediately outside of the body, but instead they will be kept stored temporarily in a muscular sac located in the pelvic cavity. And what do we call this muscular sac located in the pelvic cavity that stores the urine until it gets filled and then squeezes out this urine? Exactly, this is my urinary bladder. The urinary bladder, once filled with urine, this will cause a stretch of the wall of the urinary bladder. This results in the activation of the parasympathetic nervous system, if you remember, and this will result in a contraction or successive contractions of the muscles located in the wall of the urinary bladder. This will result in squeezing the urine to the outside of the body, traveling through another muscular tube. What we call this other muscular tubes that will carry the urine from the urinary bladder out? Yeah, exactly. This is the urethra. So again, four main organs here sharing in the formation of the urinary system. All of them are lined with transition epithelium to accommodate stretch, except for the kidney. So ureters, urinary bladder, and urethra, all the three of them are lined with transitional epithelium, which can accommodate stretch. It changes the shape of its apical cells to allow those organs to be stretched to accumulate the urine. So again, what are we looking at in here? Looking at the kidneys, ureters, urinary bladder, and the urethra. All those are located behind the peritoneum, outside of the peritoneal cavity, behind the rest of the abdominal organs. They are all retroperitoneal. All right, so now looking at a sagittal section of the kidney. How does the sagittal section of the kidney looks like? You can see on here a sagittal section of the kidney. You can see that the kidney is formed of two layers, an outer layer, this is number 5, and an inner layer, number 6. As a junction between the outer and inner layers, we've got those triangular shaped structures. Actually, they are not triangles because they have a depth. So a triangle that have a third dimension is not considered a triangle, it's considered a pyramid. So we can see here those triangular shaped structures located at the junction between the outer layer of the kidney and the inner layer of the kidney. This is where the ducts that are collecting the urine gonna be traveling, carrying the urine to the tip of those triangular shaped structures. The tip of those triangular shaped structures will conduct the urine into small ducts. Those gonna be number 9, which will then fuse together to drain the urine into larger ducts, which are marked here as number 10. Those large ducts will then drain the urine into a funnel-shaped tube that will carry the urine from inside of the kidney to the outside of the kidney. This is marked number 11. And you'll see on here, this funnel-shaped tube carrying the urine will conduct and drain the urine into a muscular tube that will carry the urine down from the kidney to the urinary bladder. This is marked number 12. So, do you remember what did we call the outermost layer of the kidney? This is where I've got most of the functional units of the kidney. What do we call this outermost layer of the kidney? Exactly, this is my renal cortex. This is my renal cortex. And what do we call the inner layer? If the outer layer is a cortex, the inner layer is going to be my middle. So what do we call this inner layer of the kidney? This is going to be my renal middle. Great, great. So looking here at the junction between the renal cortex and renal medulla, we're going to see those triangular shaped structures. Remember, those are not triangles, those are pyramids, but we are just looking at one side of them. So we're looking at this side. So it looks like a triangle. So what do we call the pyramids here of the kidney? What would we call those pyramids of the kidney? Yeah, we call the pyramids of the kidney something related to the kidney. It's renal. So we're going to call them the renal pyramids. Renal pyramids will be conducting the urine through these ducts on here, traveling the whole height of the pyramid to reach the tip of the pyramid. What do we call those tips of the pyramid? What do we call the tip of the pyramid here? This is marked number 8. What do we call the tip of the pyramid? Exactly, this is my renal papilla or the papilla of the pyramid. So this is going to be my renal papilla. Remember, when we look at the renal papillae will carry the urine to small ducts marked here in orange. What do we call those small ducts carrying the urine from the renal papillae, from the tip of those renal pyramids? Yeah, a single one is a minor calyx, and multiple ones are my minor calyces. So I've got here, this is going to be a minor calyx. And remember, what do we call the large ducts which will be collecting the urine from the minor calyces? If the small ones are called minor calyces, so what would we call the large ones? Exactly, this is going to be a major calyx. What happens to the urine after? The urine gets conducted into the major calyces and then will be drained into this funnel-shaped tube. See this funnel? What do we call this funnel-shaped tube? This is the first part where I have slowing down of the speed of the conduction of the urine. This is going to be my renal pelvis. Exactly. So what happens next? The urine will be traveling down from the renal pelvis into a muscular tube. What do we call this muscular tube? One more time here. This muscular tube carrying the urine down from the kidney to the urinary bladder. This is going to be my ureter. Any questions? Any questions concerning the structure here of the kidney? This is going to be one of the most important diagrams for the upcoming lab exam. This is one of the most important diagrams for the urinary system lab exam. All right, so you're gonna have you have it in your PowerPoints. You have it in your PowerPoints. It's a repeated information. You need just to understand the definition for each of those structures. All right. So moving on now to another concept that you've seen covered in your urinary system chapter, which is the nephron. And if you remember, the nephrons are the functional units of the kidney. Can you remind me, please, how many nephrons do I have per kidney? How many nephrons? How many per kidney? I have 1 million nephrons per kidney. And the nephron structure is what dictates how you're going to be forming the urine. The urine formation is mediated by the structure of those nephrons. So what are those nephrons formed of? Nephrons are formed of kidney tubules and running parallel to them are blood vessels or capillaries. So you have a number of kidney tubules, and running parallel to those kidney tubules are blood vessels or capillaries. So inside the kidney tubules, you have what we call the filtrate, which is the fluid that will become later on the urine. And in your capillaries, you have blood. In order for you to form the filtrate, what you're going to need to do, you filter the blood to get the filtrate. And then throughout the length of those tubules of the nephrons, you're going to be performing exchange between the filtrate in the kidney tubules and the blood located in your capillaries. So the final product I will get from all those exchanges that are going to be taking place throughout the length of those nephrons is going to be forming the urine. The end result is going to be to extract the urine from the blood. So what are the different components of those nephrons? So if we look around here, we see a set of kidney tubules that are going to be sharing in the formation of the nephrons, and running parallel to them are tufts of capillaries. So what are the kidney tubules? Starting first here, I see a cup-shaped tube, This is going to be marked number 13. And then I have a set of highly convoluted tubules located close to this cup-shaped tube. This cluster of tubules is marked number 14. And then as a continuation of those tubules, I have the tubes that will form a loop that travels down and then back up. This is marked 15. As a continuation of this loop, you have another tuft of tubules, another cluster of tubules that are highly convoluted, but they are located away from this cup-shaped tube. Those going to be marked number 16. And then I have ducts that are going to be collecting the urine from many nephrons, and those ducts are the ones that we've seen here traveling through the height of the renal pyramids. Those ducts on here. Those are my kidney tubules. Running parallel to them are tufts of capillaries. We have three famous ones on here. The tuft of capillaries located inside this cup-shaped tube. This is going to be number 18. The second famous tuft of capillaries is a tuft of capillaries that surrounds the cluster of convoluted tubules, those ones close to the cup-shaped tube, and those ones that are located away from this cup-shaped tube. Those are going to be marked number 21. And I have a tuft of capillaries that run straight down to surround this loop, and those going to be marked 22. Number 18 receives the blood from a relatively larger diameter arteriole. This is going to be marked number 19, and drains the blood out into a relatively smaller diameter arteriole. This is going to be marked number 20. So starting here with the different kidney tubules. Starting first with this cup-shaped tube. What do we call this cup-shaped tube? Can you remind me, please? Exactly, this is my glomerular capsule, or Bowman's capsule. The glomerular capsule is this tube. The glomerulus, Eleni, glomerulus is a tuft of capillaries located inside, which is number 18. So if I'm saying glomerulus, those are blood vessels kept inside the tube, inside this cup-shaped tube. The cup-shaped tube is glomerular capsule or the Bowman's capsule. But the glomerulus is the tuft of capillaries located inside that runs parallel to the capsule. All right, so let's check another part of the kidney tubules. We're looking here at this set of tubules, which are highly convoluted and located close to the Bowman's capsule. What do we call this tuft or this cluster of tubules located close to the Bowman's capsule? Remember, close to the point of origin, it's proximal. So we're going to call those are my proximal convoluted tubules. The proximal convoluted tubules. All right, so looking at as a continuation of the proximal convoluted tubules, we see here the tubules will form a loop that travels down and then back up. So what do we call this loop on here? Exactly, this is the loop of Henle. Loop of Henle. The loop of Henle. And I've got another set of convoluted tubules. This time they are located away from the Bowman's capsule, away from the point of origin. What would we call those? This set of convoluted tubules. This is going to be my exactly distal convoluted tubules. This is where the final stages of the exchange are going to be taking place. I'm almost done with the formation of the urine. Very minor changes going to be taking place later on. So the urine now is going to be, or the final stages of the filtrate, in its final stages as filtrate, will be collected by ducts. And it's not collected only from one nephron, it's collected from many, many, many nephrons. So what would we call those ducts that will be collecting the filtrate from many nephrons? What do we call the ducts collecting the filtrate from many nephrons? Those are my collecting ducts. Easy, easy. Any questions? All right, so looking here at the capillaries now that are running parallel to the kidney tubules. We've got a first tuft of capillaries, can you remind me please, that are located inside the Bowman's capsule. What do we call this tuft of capillaries located inside the glomerular capsule? Number 18, one more time, is my glomerulus. Glomerulus. The glomerulus receives blood from through an arteriole that has a large diameter compared to the one that drains the blood out of the glomerulus. So what do we call the one that brings the blood in? This is my afferent arteriole. The one bringing the blood in is the afferent arteriole. How about the one that drains the blood out from my glomerulus? So the blood comes in and then out, or at least part of it gets out through a smaller diameter arteriole. What do we call this arteriole on here that drains the blood out from the glomerular capillaries? This is going to be my efferent arterioles. Efferent arterioles. And the efferent arterioles will not just get the blood out of the glomerulus back to the blood, because we're not conducting blood back to the heart through arteries, remember? That's why we don't call it venule, we don't call it a vein, because the blood gonna keep moving away from the heart through those arterioles in the tuft of capillaries that surround the proximal and distal convoluted tubules. So what would we call the capillaries around the tubules? Something around, remember? If I am asking about the circumference, which is the distance around a circle, we call it the perimeter. So peri means around. Peri means around. So what we call the capillaries around the tubules, those are my peri, around the tubules. We're gonna call it tubular. And they are what? They are capillaries. So those are my peritubular capillaries. Looking at another set of capillaries this time, they are forming along loop. They are forming a long vessel traveling straight down around the loop of Henle. So what would we call this capillary? That is a straight vessel traveling down. Straight vessel, straight vessel, straight vessel. Exactly. This is my vessel. And recta means straight. So when we say rectangle, what a rectangle is straight angle. It's the geometric shape with straight angles. The part of the large intestine that travels straight is called what? It's called the rectum. So recta means straight. So the straight vessel on here that surrounds the loop of Henle, it's the vasa recta. Seems that I've lost connection here. Just give me a second. Can you see it back or not yet? No. How about now? All right, great. So again, we are discussing the structure of the nephrons. Again, so the nephrons are the functional units of the kidney. They are the ones who will be performing the extraction of the urine from the blood. We have 1 million nephrons per kidney. All nephrons are formed by kidney tubules and capillaries, which are running parallel to them. We are performing exchange between the blood content inside the capillaries and the contents of the kidney tubules, which is the filtrate. So we've studied the structure of the nephron, studying the different parts of the kidney tubules. Cup-shaped tube on here, Bowman's capsule, proximal convoluted tubules, loop of Henle that has a descending limb and an ascending limb, a thin segment and then a thick segment, distal convoluted tubules, then collecting the urine from many nephrons are going to be my collecting ducts. Looking at tufts of capillaries that are sharing in the formation of my nephrons, we have the first tuft of capillaries that receives the blood from a large diameter arteriole on here and drains the blood into a smaller diameter arteriole. Those going to be my glomerular capillaries, or together we're going to call it the glomerulus. Surrounding the proximal and distal convoluted tubules, we've got the peritubular capillaries, and surrounding the long loops of Henle of a special type of nephrons. Do you remember what is the type of nephrons that did have long loops of Henle? And this type of nephrons is going to be responsible for the production of concentrated urine. Do you remember what did we call this type of nephrons with long loops of Henle traveling down in the medulla? And those nephrons, if you remember, they were located at the very close to the medulla. Do you remember what did we call them? What are the two types of nephrons that we've got? What are the two types of nephrons? We do have nephrons, not the two parts. We are looking at the two types. Two types of nephrons. If you remember, we did have nephrons which are located only in the cortex. We call them the cortical nephrons. And we've got ones which are located in the cortex but close to the medulla. We call them juxta, close to the medulla, medullary nephrons. So we've got two types of nephrons, juxtamedullary nephrons and the cortical nephrons. And the ones with long loops of Henle and vasa recta, those were the juxtamedullary nephrons. Do you remember something like this? Yes? All right, great, great. So where can we find long loops of Henle and vasa recta? Again, in what type of nephrons? Juxtamedullary nephrons. Did you all get this? All right. All right, so let's check on here question starting from number 23. Here I'm asking about the name of the cells of the juxtaglomerular apparatus and what hormone do they release in response to a decline in the blood pressure. So whenever I have a decline in the blood pressure, I've got part of the kidney that is called, if you remember, the juxtaglomerular apparatus. And the juxtaglomerular apparatus was formed of three types of cells. One of them is going to be releasing a hormone. So I'm asking here about the name of the type of cells of the juxtaglomerular apparatus. And what is the name of the hormone that gets released in response to a decline in the blood pressure? This is for number 23 and 24. This hormone that you've released from this specific type of cells of the juxtaglomerular apparatus is going to be responsible to increase the blood pressure indirectly. It doesn't increase the blood pressure by itself, but instead it converts number 25 to number 26, which is not 100% active. It needs further activation and conversion. So number 26 here gets converted to 28 under the effect of an enzyme. This is marked 27. Number 28 is the one that acts to increase your blood pressure. So again, the whole story on here. You've got a decline in the blood pressure. Part of the kidney called the juxtaglomerular apparatus, if you remember, which is formed of three types of cells, will sense the decline of the blood pressure, and one of the cells in the juxtaglomerular apparatus is going to be responding by releasing a hormone. What is this hormone? This is number 24. This hormone doesn't increase your blood pressure directly, but it increases the blood pressure by activating a hormone into a semi-active form. So it converts 25 to 26. 26 is not fully active yet. It needs to be converted into 28 under the effect of 27. 28, here this is the effective hormone or the effective form of the hormone that increases your blood pressure by 5 different mechanisms of action. What are those 5 different ways by which number 28, the active form of the hormone, is going to be increasing your blood pressure? All right, so I will give you 5 minutes to think here of this question. Can have a break for 5. We come back, discuss it. This is half of your essay question. Your essay question, I will not be giving you anything on the essay question. I will ask you how your kidney responds to a decline in the blood pressure, and this is what you're going to need to write down in your response. This is half of the essay question that you're going to see in your upcoming lab exam. So I'll give you 5 minutes. We'll be back in 5 minutes to discuss the missing parts in this scenario. All right, any questions before we leave for a break? Any questions before we leave for a break? All right, so we'll be back in 5. How the kidneys respond to a decline, a decrease in the blood pressure. Or I might even leave it more vague, a change in the blood pressure. So I won't even tell you if the kidney is responding to a decrease or an increase in the blood pressure. All right. Change in the blood pressure or decline in the blood pressure. The kidney is mainly responding whenever you have a decrease in the blood pressure, because you have another organ that is going to be taking care of the blood pressure in case of a rise in the blood pressure. Whenever I have an increase in my blood pressure, the heart is the one that's going to be responding to this, not the kidney. All right.
So for that essay question, Dr. Hana, would you want us to write it as if it decreased and as if it increased?
Yeah, the part that we are describing right now is the blood pressure has decreased and now the kidneys are responding.
Okay.
All right. But the kidneys will not be responding to an increase in the blood pressure.
Oh, the heart would.
The heart, and this is something that we're going to be discussing next week.
Okay.
So
Thank
the
you.
second half of the essay question is going to be discussed next week.
All right.
All right. All right. We'll see you in 5. Thank you. All right, welcome back. So I want to double check first if you can still hear me clearly and if you can see the blackboard here on your screens. All right, so what have we got here? So before we start responding to this question, let me give you a quick reminder of the two organs that are responding to changes in the blood pressure, and those are the kidneys and the heart. Two possible changes of the blood pressure. Either I have an increase in the blood pressure, and what I mean by the blood pressure, I mean the arterial blood pressure, the pressure of the blood within my arteries. And the other change that might be taking place is a decline in my blood pressure. So either an increase or a decrease. If you remember, in order for the kidney to function, what do I need? I need enough force to drive the blood into the glomerulus. We call this is the hydrostatic pressure, glomerular hydrostatic pressure. And this is going to be pushing the fluid from the glomerular capillaries into the Bowman's capsule. Without having enough pressure here within the capillaries, I wouldn't have the first step of the urine formation, which is the filtration. So who hates low blood pressure? If I don't have pressure, if I don't have enough blood pressure coming in, would I be able to filter the blood? Would there be any pushing force to push this fluid out from the blood into the Bowman's capsule? No. So without having enough blood pressure, what's going to happen? I won't have filtration taking place, and the kidney will fail to extract the urine from the blood. So it makes perfect sense that the kidney here is trying to maintain a normal blood pressure in case of a decline in the blood pressure. So if I have a decrease in the blood pressure, who's the organ that hates low blood pressure and want to respond to this is the kidney. Because with low blood pressure, the kidney won't function. It won't be able to conduct filtration. It won't be able to extract the urine as a result. On the other hand, the heart hates high blood pressure. Why? If I have lots of pressure of the blood within my arteries, the heart needs to exert a lot of effort, need to perform more contraction to overcome this pressure present in the arteries. So the heart hates high blood pressure. So it makes perfect sense that the heart is the organ that's going to be responding to an increase in my blood pressure. This needs to be crystal clear in the back of your mind. So today's question is discussing how the kidney responds to what? Decrease in the blood pressure. Do I have an effect on a high blood pressure? Yes, I have a minor effect compared to the heart. All right, in terms of response. So again, who is the organ that responds to a decline in the blood pressure? Decline. If I have a decline in the blood pressure, what is the organs that's going to be responding? Kidneys. And what is the organs that's going to be responding in case of an increase in the blood pressure? The heart. The heart hates high blood pressure because I need to overcome this high blood pressure present in my arteries in order to pump blood out in the circulation. So heart hates high blood pressure compared to the kidney hates low blood pressure. So how the kidney is going to be responding to a low blood pressure? We do have microscopic structures located in the kidney, which are clusters of cells present nearby each of the million nephrons. Those clusters of cells are what we call the juxtaglomerular apparatus. So we have 1 million of them, one next to each of the glomeruli of the nephrons. Each of them is formed of 3 types of cells. Modified smooth muscle cells of the afferent arterioles. Those contain cytoplasmic granules, and we call them the granular cells. They act as mechanoreceptors. What I mean by mechanoreceptors, they sense the degree of stretch applied to the wall of the vessel. So if less blood is coming, less stretch is going to be applied on the wall of the arteriole, and as a result, the kidney will figure out, oh, we've got low blood pressure, so I need to respond. If less blood coming in, less stretch will be applied to the wall of the vessel, and this is how the granular cells will be able to detect a decline in the blood pressure. The macula densa, those are modified tall cells of the loop of Henle, of the ascending limb of the loop of Henle, and they are measuring the sodium content of the filtrate to see how good is the kidney responding to the change in the blood pressure. And located between the granular cells and the macula densa, we have cells to allow the communication between the two, and those are the extraglomerular mesangial cells. So again, what are we looking at in here? We're looking at 3 types of cells that are going to be forming the juxtaglomerular apparatus: granular cells, macula densa, and allowing the communication between the two are my extraglomerular mesangial cells. So here's a question is addressing which one of the 3 here is going to be releasing a hormone. So the essay question is going to be asking about both parts. How the kidney is responding to the change in the blood pressure, which is responding to a decrease in the blood pressure, and how the heart is going to be responding to the change in the blood pressure or the increase in the blood pressure. Those are 2 parts. Today we are discussing only this part. Next week, because this part on how the heart is responding to an increase in the blood pressure is going to be discussed in the next chapter. All right. I will not on the question, I will not be telling you which one is responding to a decrease, which one is responding to an increase in the blood pressure. I will leave it open, I will tell you how the kidney and the heart are responding to the change in the blood pressure, and for you to tell me the kidney is responding to a decline by activating what cells here of the juxtaglomerular apparatus, activating exactly the granular cells. So the granular cells are the ones that's going to be responding. And what hormone is it being stored in the form of cytoplasmic granules and gets released in response to a decline in the blood pressure? What is the hormone that we get released from the granular cells? 90, exactly. Great, great, great. This is the renin. And remember, renin doesn't directly increase the blood pressure. It converts an inactive hormone into a more active form. It's not fully active. What is the hormone that the renin gonna be converting and activated, partially activated? What is number 25? What's the hormone present in your blood in an inactive form, waiting for the presence of the renin to be activated? You're close, close, close. Before angiotensin, what did you have? Before angiotensin? No. Angiotensinogen. Remember, gen usually present at the end of the inactive form of the hormones. Angiotensinogen. And under the effect of renin, this is present all the time in your plasma, in your bloodstream. Whenever you've got renin, this angiotensinogen gets converted into what? It's not fully active. It's not fully active. But what is the partially activated form of the angiotensinogen after it gets partially activated by the renin? It's exactly angiotensin 1. Is this an active hormone? Is this an active hormone? Angiotensin 1, is this an active hormone? No, it's not an active hormone. Angiotensin 1 needs to be converted into a more active form. What is the active form, the final active form of this hormone? Exactly. It's my angiotensin 2. This is my active form. And who is converting angiotensin 1 into angiotensin 2? It is an enzyme present in the endothelium of the capillaries. Remember? The enzyme that converts the angiotensin, it is my angiotensin converting enzyme, or ACE. Yes, you can use ACE, yes. This is a medical abbreviation that is used by everybody. Yes. Angiotensin converting enzyme converts angiotensin 1 into angiotensin 2. And what do you think? How angiotensin 2 is going to be increasing your blood pressure? First, let us remember the formulas that we're using to figure out the factors affecting the mean arterial pressure. The mean arterial pressure is the average pressure of the blood within my arteries. How did we calculate the mean arterial pressure? We checked the amount of blood that we pump per minute from the ventricle, cardiac output, and we multiplied this by the total peripheral resistance, the resistance applied by the vessels as the blood travels through. And the cardiac output, if you remember, how did we calculate the amount of blood that we pump per ventricle per minute? We checked the amount of blood that gets pumped out per beat, stroke volume, and we multiplied this by the heart rate. So we've got multiple factors here that will affect my blood pressure. The resistance applied by the arterioles that represents most of the resistance facing the blood, the arterial blood flow. The stroke volume, the amount of blood pumped from the ventricle, the heart rate, and of course, my blood volume. The higher the volume, the higher the pressure that gets created. So those are the factors that the angiotensin 2 is going to be modifying in order to achieve the optimal blood pressure. So what is the very first function of angiotensin 2 by which it increases the blood pressure? From its name, angio vessel, and tensin means applying tension. So what is the mechanism of action here of angiotensin 2? It's the arteriolar constriction. It is the constriction of the arterioles. And why is the constriction of the arterioles is going to be allowing me to increase the blood pressure? Because remember, when you constrict the arterioles, you're going to end up increasing the resistance. If you remember, if you are watering your garden and you have a water hose here, and the water is not reaching, this is an example that has been mentioned many times, is not reaching all your yard. So it reaches only half of your yard. So what you're going to do for you to have an increase in the pressure of the water, for the water to reach all the way to the furthest point of your yard, what you're going to do, you're going to be pressing on the end of the hose. And when you press the end of the hose, you are narrowing the diameter of the outlet. When you narrow the diameter of the outlet, you are increasing the resistance. And when you increase the resistance, what happens to the pressure? You get higher pressure of the water traveling out for it to be able to reach the furthest point of your yard. With the same concept in mind, this is how angiotensin 2 acts on the arterioles. It constricts the arterioles, and as I constrict the arterioles, This increases the resistance, and as I increase resistance, I directly increase the pressure. Can you remind me, what's another mechanism of action by which angiotensin II increases your blood pressure? It allows you to retain sodium, allowing sodium reabsorption. And how does it allow you to reabsorb the sodium? I have two mechanisms here to allow sodium reabsorption. Direct effect on kidney tubules. So the angiotensin II itself binds to its receptors to enhance the sodium reabsorption. The second way by which angiotensin II increases my sodium reabsorption is by activating a gland. What gland am I activating, Eleni? Exactly. This is my adrenal cortex. Can you remind me, when you activate the adrenal cortex, what hormone are you getting out from the adrenal cortex under the effect of the angiotensin II? The one that actually is the main hormone that enhances the sodium reabsorption. Exactly, this is going to be my aldosterone. So again, how angiotensin II increases my blood pressure, constricts my arterioles. This is one thing, enhancing the sodium reabsorption. Two mechanisms by which it increases the sodium reabsorption from the kidney tubules: direct effect and an indirect effect by activating the adrenal cortex to release the aldosterone. What's another function by which angiotensin II, or mechanism of action by which angiotensin II increases my blood pressure? What do you think? It acts exactly on part of the brain. Jamila, exactly. What is the part of the brain that I'm activating? Activation of the hypothalamus. This is the part of the brain that it acts on. And what am I activating in the hypothalamus? What will be the effects on the hypothalamus? Two effects on the hypothalamus. I am stimulating the hypothalamus to release exactly ADH, anti-diuretic hormone, that prevents the water loss in the urine. It retains water in the blood, increases the blood volume, increasing my blood pressure. And the second way by which it affects the hypothalamus, what specific part exactly, Ina? It's going to be activating the hypothalamic thirst center. And by activating the hypothalamic thirst center, you're going to feel the urge to drink a beverage. And when I drink a beverage, what's going to happen? This increases my blood volume back to normal, increasing my blood pressure back to normal. And this is what I want. So again, two effects here of the angiotensin II on your hypothalamus. First, it enhances the hypothalamus to release ADH. The second is by activating the hypothalamic thirst center. And by both means, you're going to be increasing the blood volume and so the blood pressure. Can you remind me what's another mechanism of action of angiotensin 2 by which it increases the blood pressure? It's a constriction of a specific arteriole. Exactly, constriction of the efferent arteriole. If you remember, where was the efferent arteriole? It was draining the blood out of the glomerulus. So when I constrict the efferent arteriole, what's going to happen? The amount of blood reaching my peritubular capillaries is going to drop. So here, the amount of blood going to the peritubular capillaries will drop. And what's going to happen to the amount of reabsorption taking place? So imagine here, this is my kidney tubule, and this is my peritubular capillary. I'm telling you that I'm decreasing the blood in the peritubular capillary. So the pressure is going to be decreasing. So I'm increasing the difference between the pressure of the kidney tubules and my peritubular capillary. So when I'm looking at the reabsorption rate, the rate by which the fluid travels back, will it increase or decrease? What do you think? When I decrease the pressure within my peritubular capillaries, as a result, more fluid is going to be traveling back to my blood vessels. So remember the examples that we've used to differentiate, to make sense of the movement of the substance between the various pressures. If the pressure was the same on both sides, I have got the same pressure on both sides. Would there be any movement? If you at your current job have this amount of pressure on you, and you've got another job offering that will put the same pressure on you, giving you the same benefits, would you be moving from your job to the other job? No, there will be no movement. But if you got another job offer that puts less pressure on you, less stress on you, so what you're going to be doing, considering that both are paying the same, you're going to move to the side with less pressure. This is the same for everything: air, water, fluid, filtrate, urine, anything, gases, anything will move from high pressure to low pressure. So if I'm reducing the pressure within my peritubular capillaries because I constricted the afferent arteriole, I'm reducing the pressure. So this is a new job offer. With less pressure, with less stress. So the fluid gonna be moving to the side with less pressure. So I'm getting back more water. I'm increasing as a result the water reabsorption. And when I increase water reabsorption, this means I will get higher blood volume and so higher blood pressure. One last mechanism of action for angiotensin 2 by which it increases my blood pressure. Can you remind me what was this one? Yes. What anyone else? was the contraction of the extraglomerular mesangial cells. So contraction of the extraglomerular mesangial cells. You see on here, those are my extraglomerular mesangial cells. This is the glomerulus, and this is the Bowman's capsule. When I contract the extraglomerular mesangial cells, I am putting the glomerular capillaries away from the Bowman's capsule. So you see on here, before I perform the contraction of the extraglomerular mesangial cells, the area available for the filtration to take place, for the fluid to travel from the blood out into the Bowman's capsule, is all the points of contact between the capillary and the Bowman's capsule. So I have a great surface area for the filtration to take place. But when I contract the extraglomerular mesangial cells, I am pulling the capillaries away from the Bowman's capsule. And as a result, what's going to happen to the area available for the filtration here? It decreased, significantly decreased. So I have less exposure to the Bowman's capsule, so I have less surface area to allow filtration. If I'm not losing fluid out from the blood into the Bowman's capsule, this means I will be able to retain the water as blood. And as I keep it as blood, what's going to happen to my blood volume? If you're not losing water from your blood, this is going to increase your blood volume. And if you increase the volume of the blood, this is going to cause the increase of your blood pressure. So again, last mechanism of actions that we're looking at today for angiotensin 2, by which it increases the blood pressure, is by performing a contraction of the extraglomerular mesangial cells. And remember, contraction of the extraglomerular mesangial cells is going to result in a decrease in filtration. And as a result, retaining more water in my blood, because I'm not losing it out in the urine. And as I retain it in my blood volume goes up, blood pressure goes up. All right, so this is the minimum that I would expect you to mention in your response to this part of the essay question. Again, your essay question is going to be two components, two parts. How your kidney responds to the changes in the blood pressure, how your heart responds to the changes in the blood pressure. So here, what we've just discussed is how the kidney is going to be responding to the change in the blood pressure. And now you understand that the kidney is responding to the decline in the blood pressure. Whenever I have a decrease in the blood pressure, the kidney now interferes to increase it back to normal. This is again the minimum for you to get a full grade for this part of the question. Nothing will be stated to you, nothing will be given to you. You're going to be on your own. You are expected to write down complete sentences. All right. So what is the minimum that you need to mention again in the response to how the kidney is responding to change in the blood pressure or decline in the blood pressure? You need to tell me that the granular cells of the juxtaglomerular apparatus is releasing renin in response to the decline in the blood pressure. Renin acts on angiotensinogen and converts it into angiotensin 1, which is not active. Angiotensin 1 gets converted into angiotensin 2 by the effect of the angiotensin converting enzyme. Angiotensin 2 increases the blood pressure by 5 means. Those are constriction of the arterioles, enhancing sodium reabsorption directly by acting on the kidney tubules, indirectly by activating the adrenal cortex to release aldosterone. Third action, activation of the hypothalamus to release ADH and to activate the hypothalamic thirst cell. Mode of action number 4 is going to be the constriction of the afferent arterioles that results in increased water reabsorption. Mode of action number 5 is going to be the contraction of the extraglomerular mesangial cells, reducing the filtration. This is again the minimum. You can add much more in the description, but this is the minimum that I'm expecting from you guys to get a full score for this part.